Mumbai, 2010. A 36-floor luxury tower rises from the heart of Colaba, one of the most expensive zip codes in the world. Glass, marble, ocean views. 14 crore rupees per flat. But here's what they told the government: this building was for war widows. For the mothers and wives of soldiers who died in Kargil. For the women who got a folded flag instead of a husband coming home. That was the lie. A lie so brazen, so grotesque, that when it finally cracked open, it brought down a chief minister, exposed 3 former army chiefs, and shook the foundations of civil-military trust in this country. I've covered financial frauds for 15 years. I've sat across tables from CBI officers who have seen everything. But when one of my contacts inside the Maharashtra government called me about Adarsh, he used one word: shameless. This is the story of how India's most sacred institution, the Indian Army, was used as a shield to loot land meant for martyrs. This is the Adarsh Housing Society scam. Let me take you back to 1999. The Kargil War. India loses over 500 soldiers. The nation is in mourning. And in that mourning, there is also political opportunity if you know how to use it. Fast forward to 2000 to 2001. A proposal surfaces in Mumbai for a cooperative housing society in Colaba, a plot of land that falls under the jurisdiction of the Indian Army's Southern Command. The proposal is modest on paper, a 6-floor building for Kargil war widows and ex-servicemen. Pure, patriotic, above suspicion. Who would question a building for widows of martyrs? That was the master stroke. The name chosen, Adarsh. The Hindi word for ideal. The promoters were not widows. They were bureaucrats, politicians, and serving military officers. Names like Kanhaiyalal Gidwani, a retired civil servant. They lobbied the Maharashtra government, the Defence Ministry, the BMC, every office that needed to stamp an approval. And approval after approval came. Why? Because every file had the words Kargil widows on the cover. The plot was originally army land, part of a buffer zone adjacent to the ecologically sensitive Back Bay reclamation area. Technically, no civilian construction should have been permitted. But between 2002 and 2008, the Maharashtra government under 3 different chief ministers quietly transferred the land, gave environmental clearances, and allowed the floor space index, the FSI, to be expanded from 6 floors to 31 floors. Then 36 floors. A 400 crore rupees building. Built on a martyr's name. Built on a widow's silence. Here is where the story turns from corrupt to criminal. The Adarsh Housing Society had 102 flats in that 36-floor tower. Out of those 102 flats, how many went to actual Kargil war widows? Let me tell you. Almost none. The beneficiaries of this war widow housing society included IS officers, IPS officers, politicians, their relatives, and this is the part that made my CBI contacts go quiet, sitting and retired army generals. People who, by definition, had no business being in a society meant for the families of soldiers who died under their command. Among the names that surfaced in subsequent investigations, Ashok Chauhan, then Chief Minister of Maharashtra, whose relatives got flats. 3 former army chiefs were linked to the society, not as beneficiaries directly, but their names appeared in letters and approvals that greased the wheels. Former Maharashtra Chief Minister Vilasrao Deshmukh. Former CM Sushil Kumar Shinde. Current and former defense secretaries. The method was elegant. Society membership was restricted. No public notice. You had to be recommended. That recommendation came through a closed chain of bureaucrats and officers scratching each other's backs. The flats were allotted at prices that were, at the time of original registration, far below market value, some as low as 30 to 40 rupees lakh for apartments that would later be valued at 14 crore rupees each. The profit wasn't just in living there. It was in what you could eventually sell. This wasn't welfare. This was a private wealth generation scheme wearing a soldier's uniform. Scams this big don't unravel in courts. They unravel because one person decides they've had enough. In 2010, the Indian Express published a series of explosive reports exposing the Adarsh society. The reporters had documents, floor plans, membership lists, approval files with forged notings, letters between army headquarters and the Maharashtra government that showed exactly who knew what and when. The timing was catastrophic for the establishment. India was still riding the high of Commonwealth Games preparations. The UPA government was already under pressure from multiple corruption allegations. And now, soldiers, martyrs, war widows used as human shields for a luxury tower. The public reaction was volcanic. The story spread from front pages to Parliament. Opposition MPs demanded answers. Within weeks, the Maharashtra government ordered an inquiry. The centre ordered its own. And then, the signal moment. On 9th November 2010, Ashok Chauhan resigned as Chief Minister of Maharashtra. He was the sitting CM. He resigned because his name was in the files. His two relatives had been allotted flats. His predecessor, Vilasrao Deshmukh, also faced scrutiny. 3 army generals faced inquiries. The Defence Ministry placed the building under a freeze, no sales, no transfers. The Maharashtra government cancelled all illegal floor space approvals, which meant, on paper, the top 25 floors of the building were illegal structures. 25 floors. Hanging in legal limbo. Over 350 crore rupees worth of real estate. And the war widows. Still waiting. I want to be precise here, because this is where the story gets complicated. And complicated is where the powerful survive. The CBI registered an FIR in December 2010 against multiple accused including bureaucrats, politicians, and military officers. The charges: cheating, criminal conspiracy, forgery of government documents, and violations under the Prevention of Corruption Act. Multiple inquiry commissions were set up. The Maharashtra government appointed the J. Patil Committee. The centre appointed a separate high-powered committee. The army court-martialed some officers. The findings were damning. The Patil Committee report concluded that the land was never legally transferred to the society, that environmental clearances were obtained fraudulently, and that the expansion from 6 to 36 floors was a series of deliberate illegal acts. The Army's own court of inquiry found that several serving and retired officers had violated service rules by acquiring property while still in uniform or shortly after retirement without proper permissions. But here is the truth about Indian investigations that I've learned in 15 years: the bigger the accused, the slower the case. Multiple charge sheets were filed. Accused approached high courts. Cases were stayed. Evidence challenged. By 2013, the Bombay High Court was hearing multiple petitions. Key accused including Ashok Chauhan moved courts challenging the CBI proceedings. The building itself, 36 floors, concrete and glass, still stands in Colaba today. A monument to impunity. The legal battle crawled forward with all the urgency of a government office on a Friday afternoon. Here is the current status of the Adarsh scam, and I want you to listen carefully because this tells you everything about how power works in India. As of 2024, 14 years after the scam broke, no significant conviction has been delivered in the criminal case. Ashok Chauhan, who resigned in 2010, was later given a clean chit by the CBI in 2013 in one part of the case. He was subsequently re-inducted into active politics, served as a minister, and in 2024, this will make your blood boil, he joined the BJP and contested elections. The building still stands. Residents still live in many of the flats. The Supreme Court of India has, at various points, taken cognizance of the case and issued notices. The Maharashtra government passed an order to demolish the illegal floors, but the order has not been executed. Not a single floor has come down. However, there are consequences that did register. Several IAS and IPS officers were compulsorily retired or had their promotions stalled. A few army officers faced career-ending inquiries. The Maharashtra government's urban planning department underwent some reform. And critically, the Supreme Court ruled that the land continues to belong to the government, meaning no flat owner has clear, unencumbered title. In real terms, 350 crore rupees worth of property is in legal limbo. The people who grabbed it cannot fully enjoy it. That is not justice. But it is a consequence. The war widows never got their flats. That is the headline no one remembers. I'll end with something my source inside the Ed told me when I first started digging into this case. He said, Vikram, the worst part isn't the money. It's what it tells every soldier about why they're dying. Think about what Adarsh represented. The Indian Army is one of the last institutions that ordinary Indians trust completely. Soldiers die in Siachen at -50 degrees. They die in counterinsurgency operations in Manipur. They die in places whose names their families can't spell. And they die partly because they have to believe, that the system they serve has honor. Adarsh told them, the system used your death as a cover story. The generals who signed your commission letters were grabbing flats in your name. The politicians who draped your coffin in a tricolor were quietly registering property on the same day. The financial damage, approximately 400 crore rupees in undervalued property transferred to the politically connected. 41 families, bureaucrats, politicians, officers, enriched at the expense of a nation's conscience. But beyond the money, the Adarsh scam contributed to a broader erosion of civil-military trust that India is still paying for. It created a generation of junior officers who entered service knowing that the top brass plays the same game as the netas. That is a damage you cannot put a rupee figure on. The lesson for every Indian watching this: corruption doesn't always wear the face of a goon. Sometimes it wears medals. Sometimes it folds a flag with white gloves. And sometimes it builds a 36-floor luxury tower and names it ideal. The Adarsh building still stands in Colaba. Every day. Gleaming in the Mumbai sun. A 36-floor reminder that in India, the most shameless theft wears the most patriotic costume. If this episode made you angry, good. That anger is information. Share this. Make noise. And if you want to go deeper into India's biggest frauds and cover-ups, cases that newspapers buried, subscribe. Because next week, we are opening another file. And that one is wars.